What do you mean she's out again? That's the third shift this week, Harrison Zeller said, staring across the conference table at the district manager. Is she sick? Apparently, the district manager muttered, flipping through his clipboard. But I honestly think she's milking it. That store's always short-staffed. Maybe they're just soft. 14 coffee roastery cafes. His father built the first one in 1984. Now Harrison ran the company, but lately he'd stopped recognizing it. The original mission was simple: roast fresh, treat people right, pay fair. But lately, customer reviews were slipping and turnover at the roasting locations had doubled in 6 months. Harrison kept hearing the same thing: tired staff, poor morale, missed shifts. But no one gave him a straight answer. I want to see it for myself, Harrison muttered. The district manager raised an eyebrow. You want to visit the roastery? No, Harrison said. I want to work there. He called a friend who worked in costuming for a local theater company. They trimmed his beard, dyed his hair darker, fitted him with glasses and a soft Midwest accent. He had never met the baristas or roasters personally. His last visit to the South Tacoma store had been 5 years ago. Most of the original team had moved on or retired. He applied as Henry, a trainee looking for a second chance after a rough patch of unemployment. It wasn't hard to believe he was pushing 50, humble, and knew just enough about beans to sell the story. On Monday morning, he walked into the South Tacoma Roastery Cafe wearing a thrift store windbreaker and worn-out sneakers. The manager, a wiry man in his early 40s named Mitch, barely looked up from his tablet when Harrison walked in. You Henry? Yeah. Starting today. Cool. Grab an apron. Don't get in anyone's way. The roastery side of the store smelled incredible: fresh beans, warm wood, and a hint of cinnamon from a seasonal latte. But the energy was off. The 3 staff members looked drained. No one greeted him. He was assigned to shadow Ren Whitlow, a barista with sharp eyes and a quiet, steady presence. Her curly hair was tied back in a bandana, and she worked like someone who didn't have time to complain. First thing, she said softly, handing him a towel. Wipe everything, even if it looks clean. They spent the morning prepping, weighing beans, wiping down counters, and greeting customers. Ren never raised her voice, but she noticed everything. She caught a mistake he made dosing espresso after only 2 tries. You're fast, Harrison said. She smiled faintly. You have to be. By noon, the cafe was slammed. Mitch disappeared into the back, leaving Ren, Harrison, and a teenage barista named Trevor to handle the rush. The line stretched to the door. Ren worked like a machine, calling out drinks, correcting orders on the fly, and training Harrison between customers. She never snapped, but her eyes were tired. Where's the roaster? Harrison asked during a lull. Upstairs. That's where the beans get roasted and cooled. We pack down here. Can I see it? She hesitated. If Mitch isn't watching, sure. They snuck upstairs. The roastery was hot and loud, with a massive German-made roasting drum in the center. The air smelled like burnt caramel. A tall man in a flannel shirt stood at the controls, adjusting the gas line. His name tag read, Kyle. That's Kyle, Ren said. Senior roaster. Been here 9 years. Kyle turned, wiping sweat from his forehead. You knew? Yeah. Harrison nodded. Just started. Kyle grunted. Good luck. Then a voice echoed up from the stairwell. Kyle. It was Mitch. Ren needs a runner downstairs. Henry can't keep up. Ren winced. Sorry. We should go. Harrison followed her down, but something Kyle said stuck with him. Good luck. Not welcome. Not glad you're here. Just luck. The next day was worse. One barista called out. Another quit mid-shift after a fight with Mitch over a drink remake. Ren picked up the slack without a word. But what hit Harrison hardest happened late afternoon. He was restocking pastries when he overheard a quiet voice behind the counter. Hey, Kyle. I don't think I can do my shift tomorrow. I got a fever and nope. You're on. It was a young roastery assistant named May. Her voice cracked. But Kyle cut her off. If you don't show, that's job abandonment. And that means no pay. You want your check. May blinked. I just need the day. I don't care. Take unpaid or show up. Harrison froze. His stomach turned. May walked off, head down. She didn't cry, but her hands were shaking. He turned to Ren. Is that normal? Ren looked away. It's been like that for a while. Do people get sick pay? They're supposed to. She exhaled. But Kyle decides who's really sick and who's not. Harrison's hands clenched around the pastry box. He'd seen enough. The next morning, Harrison arrived half an hour early. The store lights were still off. Rain pattered against the parking lot and the sky was just beginning to gray. He waited by the back entrance until Ren pulled in, balancing a box of produce on her hip. She gave him a quiet nod. You're early, she said, unlocking the door. I figured there was more to learn. She flicked on the lights but didn't respond. Her silence wasn't cold, it was conserving. Harrison could see it now. Every movement was measured. Every word weighed. She wasn't unkind. She was surviving. They began prep in silence. No one else had arrived. The dough hadn't been delivered, so pastry trays stayed empty. The espresso machine sputtered weakly, it hadn't been descaled in weeks. Ren tapped the side of the steam wand with a cloth. Mitch was supposed to submit the maintenance ticket last week, she said under her breath. By opening hour, only Trevor had shown up. He looked pale, and his hands trembled as he tried to refill the ice bin. Harrison pulled him aside. You all right? I didn't sleep. Had to cover close at the other location. Mitch said if I didn't, I'd lose hours here. Before Harrison could respond, the front door flew open. Mitch walked in, coffee in hand, and tossed his coat onto a stool. Why's the pastry case empty? No dough delivery, Ren said. We called. They said the order wasn't submitted. Mitch didn't look at her. Cool. Well, someone figure it out. I've got payroll to run. He disappeared into the back office. The cafe started filling quickly, commuters grabbing their morning fix. With only 3 people on the floor, the line grew fast. Harrison took orders, Ren handled the bar, and Trevor worked register and food. By mid-morning, the atmosphere was stretched thin. A customer with a Bluetooth headset waved his receipt. This was supposed to be a triple. I watched you. You only pulled 2. Ren apologized, remade it, and handed it over. The man rolled his eyes without saying thank you. As the next customer stepped up, Harrison caught Ren leaning briefly against the counter. Her knuckles were white around a milk jug. A few minutes later, a woman in a trench coat stepped up to the counter. I ordered my drink 15 minutes ago. Where is it? Trevor looked lost. What was the name? Monica. I've been standing right there. Ren turned, checked the bar, and found the cup. It had been made but never called out. I'm sorry, she said quickly. Here it is. Monica narrowed her eyes. This is cold. I paid for oat milk. This is dairy. I'll remake it, Ren said. No. I want to speak to the manager. Mitch reappeared, pulled his phone from his pocket, and stepped between them. What's the issue? She gave me the wrong drink. And now she wants to redo it like I'm the problem. Mitch didn't ask for clarification. He turned to Ren. Take 5. I said take 5. Ren stepped back, jaw clenched. After Monica left, Mitch leaned over the counter. You're not paid to argue. Harrison stepped forward. She didn't argue. The drink was mislabeled. Mitch looked him up and down. You've been here, what, 2 days? Maybe don't start giving input on things you don't understand. Harrison stared at him, keeping his voice low. I understand you didn't even ask what happened. Mitch's eyes narrowed. You want to run this place? I want you to treat people like people. Mitch didn't respond. He walked away. Ren came back quietly and washed her hands. She didn't look at anyone. She just went back to steaming milk. At the end of the shift, Harrison caught her outside, zipping up her hoodie. You didn't deserve that. She shrugged. It wasn't the worst part of the day. What was? She hesitated. May didn't show. Kyle told her not to. Why? She texted me this morning. She had a migraine and couldn't stand. He told her it wasn't a real illness. Did she lose the shift? She's hourly. If she doesn't clock in, she doesn't get paid. Harrison rubbed his face. Do you know how often that happens? often enough that no one calls out unless they're bleeding or throwing up. The next day, Harrison asked to be scheduled on the roasting floor. Kyle gave a reluctant nod. Just don't touch anything unless I say so. The roastery upstairs was blistering by noon. The steel drum roared every 15 minutes. Kyle moved, constantly adjusting dials, dumping beans, logging roast curves in a tattered notebook. Harrison helped bag and label, sweeping up the chaff and stacking finished product. At one point, Kyle took a call. He stepped into the stairwell but didn't shut the door. No. I told you if she doesn't show, she doesn't get hours. We're not running a daycare. Pause. She's not being punished. She's just not useful if she's not here. That's all. He hung up and stepped back in. You bag those Guatemalans and check the valve seals. I don't want another batch going stale. Harrison didn't respond. He moved toward the table, but his hands were shaking. Later that afternoon, a younger employee named Javi came in for his roasting shift. He looked nervous and fidgeted with his apron. Hey, Kyle. I wanted to ask, do we still get the roasting certs covered if we've been here 6 months? Kyle didn't look up. Who told you that? HR, when I was hired. Yeah, well, that was before they cut budgets. If you want certs, pay for them. But it's like $1,000. Then save up. Javi looked down. Okay. Kyle turned to Harrison. You got a problem with that too? Do you? Kyle crossed his arms. This is a roasting floor, not a charity. Harrison didn't answer. He finished the batch he was labeling and asked to take his break. Instead of sitting in the break room, he went outside. He called his assistant from a blocked number and asked for May's emergency contact. She's an hourly worker, sir. We don't usually keep that on file unless they're full-time. Then find her phone number. I need to speak with her. That evening, he texted her as Henry and asked if she was okay. She replied hours later. I'm fine. Just staying away until I figure out if it's worth it. Worth what? Staying at a place that treats you like a problem. The next morning, Harrison arrived early again. Ren was already there, cutting lemons for tea. He watched her for a moment before approaching. I want to ask you something. She didn't look up. Okay. If you could change something here, just one thing, what would it be? She stopped slicing and finally met his eyes. I'd want my hours to mean something. Not just to the customers. To the people running this place. I want to matter when I'm sick. I want to matter when I'm tired. I want to matter without having to break myself to prove it. She turned back to the lemons. Harrison didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The next Tuesday started with thunder. Rain lashed against the roastery's windows as Harrison stepped inside, water dripping from his hood. The cafe hadn't opened yet, but the lights were on. Kyle stood near the espresso bar, arms folded, talking at Ren in a clipped, sharp tone. You're scheduled on register today, not bar. That's final. I'm faster on bar and it's not about speed. It's about rotation. You don't make the schedule. You follow it. Ren caught sight of Harrison and turned away, jaw tight. Kyle didn't acknowledge him. Harrison walked to the back, hung up his soaked windbreaker, and grabbed an apron. He passed Trevor on the way out, his uniform damp, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows, eyes sunken. You been here long already? Harrison asked. Overnight shift. The other guy bailed last minute. Mitch said I had to cover it or lose my weekend hours. Harrison didn't respond. The math was already running in his head, 16 hours on Trevor's feet if he stayed through the morning rush. That wasn't just illegal. It was dangerous. Inside the cafe, Ren silently prepped syrups while Kyle hovered behind the counter, checking his phone. The rain hadn't let up, and by 8, a steady stream of drenched customers poured in. One of the espresso machines sputtered and shut down mid-pour. Kyle glanced at it and walked away. Do we have a backup? Harrison asked. It's been acting up for days, Ren said, voice flat. No one filed the repair order. Kyle reappeared with a croissant in hand. You two figure it out. I've got a supplier call at 9. Ren didn't answer. She grabbed a wrench from under the sink and crouched near the machine. Harrison knelt beside her. You know how to fix it? No. But I'd rather try than wait for someone who won't. By 10, the cafe had a line out the door. With one machine down, every drink took twice as long. Trevor was pale and sweating, moving like he was underwater. Harrison stepped in. Go sit for 5 minutes. I'll cover register. I can't. Mitch is due in and sit down. If he has a problem, he can talk to me. Trevor hesitated, then shuffled toward the break room. Ren glanced up, but said nothing. Harrison took over the register. The line crawled. A woman in a red scarf tapped the counter. I ordered 2 cappuccinos 15 minutes ago. We're on a schedule. They're coming up. Thanks for being patient. She sighed loudly and crossed her arms. Behind him, Ren worked the single machine with quiet efficiency. Kyle was still nowhere to be seen. At 11, the cafe emptied briefly. Harrison stepped outside for air, leaning against the brick wall. He had barely touched his phone all week. Dozens of messages from the office blinked on the screen. He ignored them. As he turned back, a voice called out, "Henry." He looked up. May stood across the lot, clutching a folded umbrella. Her hair was damp, her hoodie zipped to her chin. "I wasn't sure if you'd be here," she said. "I'm glad you came. I'm not staying. I just wanted to grab my last check. Kyle said I had to pick it up in person." Harrison's jaw tightened. He didn't offer to mail it? He said if I wanted it, I could come get it like everyone else. Wait here. Inside, Kyle was back behind the bar, sipping from a branded to-go cup. May's here for her check. Kyle didn't look up. She can wait. I'm not done with payroll. She's been waiting for a week. Yeah, and she quit, so I'm not exactly prioritizing it. She didn't quit. She was sick, and you threatened her pay if she didn't show. Kyle sighed, finally turning. Are you really getting this emotional over someone who lasted 3 months? Harrison didn't move. Give her the check. Kyle stared back, then reached under the counter and pulled an envelope from a binder. He handed it over without a word. Harrison took it and walked outside. May took the envelope, holding it like it might disappear. Thanks. He nodded. You heading home? Yeah. I've got a job interview this afternoon. Not coffee. Good. You deserve better. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not just a temp, are you? He didn't answer. She smiled faintly, then turned and walked away. Back inside, Ren was wiping down the bar. Her hands moved mechanically, her posture stiffer than usual. You okay? Harrison asked. She shouldn't have needed someone to fight for her check. She didn't. She just needed someone to care. A beat passed. You know, Ren said, when I started here, we had weekly team meetings. We used to vote on playlists. We got beans to take home. Now we just get told what not to do. Before Harrison could respond, Mitch walked in, shaking an umbrella. All right, everyone. Staff meeting in the back. Now. No one moved. I said now. Ren set down the rag. Trevor shuffled out of the break room. Harrison followed them toward the back office. Inside, Mitch stood in front of the whiteboard. Kyle leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. Couple quick things, Mitch said. First, complaints are up. Late drinks, wrong orders, unfriendly service. That stops this week. No one spoke. Second, we're rolling out a new labor model. Fewer baristas on during slow hours. If you're not pulling your weight, you'll lose shifts. Trevor swallowed hard. Third, no more swaps without manager approval. Too many people gaming the schedule. Ren spoke up. Sometimes we swap because people are sick. Mitch ignored her. If you have issues, take it up with me. Not with each other. That's it. He started to walk out, but Harrison stepped forward. One thing. Mitch turned. I've been here a week. I've seen people pushed beyond exhaustion. I've seen broken equipment ignored. I've seen staff penalized for being human. Mitch's eyes narrowed. You don't speak for this team. No, Harrison said. I lead it. He pulled the glasses from his face and stepped forward. I'm Harrison Zeller, CEO of Zeller Roastery. And I've spent the last week watching this place fall apart. Silence. Mitch's mouth opened, then closed. Kyle blinked, straightened up. Ren stared at Harrison like she was trying to make sense of what she was seeing. You're not serious, Mitch said. I am. And you just showed me exactly why I needed to come here. Trevor looked down. Ren didn't move. Harrison turned to Kyle. You threatened to withhold pay. You ignored repair tickets. You denied training you promised. You're done. Today. Kyle's jaw clenched. You can't just, I can. And I will. He turned to Mitch. You fostered a culture of fear and silence. You're more interested in control than leadership. You're fired. Mitch's face turned pale. You'll both be escorted out by the regional HR lead this afternoon. I've already made the call. No one moved. Then Trevor sat down, like his knees had given out. Harrison turned to the rest of the team. You've been running this place without support, without tools, and without respect. That ends today. He looked at Ren. You shouldn't have to fix machines to get through a shift. You shouldn't have to cover for 2 people alone. Starting tomorrow, we'll have temporary support flown in from other stores until we rebuild this team properly. Her voice was quiet but steady. What about sick leave? You'll have it. Retroactively. And going forward. She nodded once, then looked away. Harrison let out a breath. I'll be here for the next few days. Not as Henry. As myself. Anyone who wants to talk, my door's open. He stepped aside. No one said anything, not yet. But for the first time since he walked into South Tacoma, no one looked afraid. By the time the sun had set, Harrison was sitting in the back office alone, the same room where Mitch had once barked orders with a coffee-stained clipboard. The silence felt different now, less oppressive, more reflective. A temporary operations lead from headquarters was arriving in the morning, and HR had already begun reviewing schedules and time cards to identify withheld pay and missed breaks. But the bigger challenge loomed. Trust didn't come back just because you said the right things. It came back slowly, if at all. The next morning, Harrison arrived before opening, wearing his usual jacket and no disguise. Ren was already inside, organizing inventory with a different rhythm than before, methodical, but not guarded. He stepped into the storage room where she was counting syrup bottles. I want to start with you, he said. Not because you were the loudest, but because you carried more than anyone should. She paused with a bottle in her hand, then set it down. You don't have to do that. I do, he said. You've been holding this place together without a title, without recognition, and without the authority to fix what was broken. I'm offering you the manager role. She blinked. You're serious? You've already been doing the work. The only thing missing was the support. That changes today. I'll need help, she said. This place needs more than one person steering it. You'll get it. We're bringing in an assistant manager from another cafe until you can build your own team. Full control over hiring with HR's backing. She nodded, slowly. Then I'll do it. That afternoon, Harrison sat down with every team member one by one privately, with no clipboard, no assistant taking notes. Just him and a yellow legal pad. Trevor sank into the metal chair like his body had aged a year in a week. I thought I was going to get fired, he said. You were never the problem, Harrison replied. What do you need from us to stay? Trevor hesitated. A schedule I can handle. Somewhere safe to say no. And maybe a chair that doesn't cut into my back. You'll have all 3. And paid training starting next week. Paid? Harrison nodded. We're not doing favors anymore. You work, you get compensated fairly. Kyle's former roastery assistant, Javi, arrived for his shift after school and found Harrison waiting for him upstairs. Is this about yesterday? Javi asked. It's about everything, Harrison said. You asked for certification support and got brushed off. I didn't think anyone actually noticed. I did. We're bringing the certification program back. Not just for you, for anyone on the roasting track. And we'll cover the full cost. Javi folded his arms, unsure. Why now? Because the people who blocked it are gone. And the people who care are staying. Harrison didn't make any speeches. He didn't call for applause. He just kept listening and fixing. The espresso machine was replaced within 48 hours. A technician came in to deep clean the ventilation system above the roaster, the first scheduled maintenance in over a year. The staff refrigerator, once moldy and half-functional, was swapped with a new unit. But more important than all of that, the culture began to shift. On the fourth day, a woman in her early 20s with a nervous smile walked into the cafe holding a folder. Ren met her near the pastry case. "You're May, right?" she asked. May nodded. "Ren, I heard you were interviewing somewhere else." "I was," May said. "But I heard what happened. And I wanted to see if maybe I could try again." Ren led her to the back where Harrison was reviewing supply orders. "We'd like to bring her back," Ren said simply. Harrison looked up and offered his hand. "If you still want the job, it's yours. With your full sick leave restored and nothing held against you." May's shoulders eased. "Then yes, I want to come back." That weekend, Harrison called a regional staff meeting not just for South Tacoma, but for the managers of all 14 locations. It was the first time in 2 years that every manager had been in the same room. He stood at the front, sleeves rolled up, no microphone. "I went undercover because I stopped recognizing the company my father built. What I saw in South Tacoma wasn't an isolated issue. It was a warning. No one interrupted. We tolerated leaders who used fear instead of guidance. We allowed silence to replace support. That ends now. We're rewriting the playbook." He laid out a new framework: mandatory leadership training for all managers, anonymous reporting channels tied directly to HR, and a new position employee advocate at every location, voted on by staff quarterly. No more unilateral decisions on sick leave, no more unapproved shift swaps, and no more wage suppression by delay or intimidation. He closed the binder in his hand and looked into the crowd. "If you're not here to lead by example, you're in the wrong room." 3 managers resigned over the next week. Harrison didn't try to convince them to stay. Back in South Tacoma, the rhythm of the cafe changed gradually. Not overnight. Trevor still moved slower than others on some days. Ren still carried more than she said out loud. But people laughed more. Music returned to the floor. And when someone needed a break, they got it without an argument, without a side eye, without fear. One afternoon, Harrison pulled up a stool near the bar where Ren was experimenting with a new cold brew recipe using citrus peels and cardamom. "You ever think about roasting yourself?" he asked. "I might," she said. "Once I know this place can run without me watching every corner." "It will," he said, "because you've built something worth protecting." She didn't smile, but she added more ice to the shaker and poured him a sample. "Try it, and be honest." He took a sip, paused, and nodded. "It's different. It's bold." "That's the idea," she said. Things should be. Within 2 months, South Tacoma posted the highest customer satisfaction scores in the region. More importantly, staff turnover dropped to its lowest in 3 years. Harrison didn't go back undercover again, at least not right away. But he stopped sending others to do what he now knew he needed to see for himself. Every quarter, he picked a different location and worked a shift not as a test, not as a trap, but as a reminder of what it means to serve, of what it means to lead.